WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. Thank you for tuning to WVTC Radio Detroit and the Community Bell Show with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner Edna Bell. Stay tuned for insightful information Detroiters will find valuable. Text a friend and tell them to watch with you for news you can use. And now, your host, Edna Bell.
As the cold winds blow, stronger than ever, sometimes it shakes my soul, but I know that my feet's on solid ground and I will not be moved.
Hello, everyone. How are you this lovely, I know it's raining, but it's still lovely. We need the rain so that in a few days we'll have pretty green grass and we'll have lovely flowers. Thank you so much for joining me again on the Community Bell Show. I am your host, Edna Bell. I am delighted to be here with you. We have a very special program today. We're going to be talking to two wonderful women of Detroit, two Sharons. Sharon McWhorter, who is the owner of the Black woman who owns the building in Detroit, and Sharon Madison, another Black woman who owns a building in Detroit. Both these ladies have been around for a long time, have done great work in the community, and you're going to get a chance to meet them hear from them about why they got started, how they got started, what their challenges are, and anything else they want to share with you. But before that, a couple of things. I want to first of all thank Sheriff Ray Washington, who was on last week, for talking to us about the Sheriff's Department and his new position and what he's looking forward to doing as the new sheriff. And he has agreed to be on a monthly basis to talk about what's going on in the Sheriff's Department. And he'll bring many of his staff on so that we get a chance to meet people who do the work in the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. And we appreciate that from him. I'd like to also congratulate Wayne County Commissioner Chair Alicia Bell for a successful prom dress giveaway this past week. It was just absolutely wonderful. It was on this past Saturday at Third New Hope Baptist Church. We had more than 100 young ladies come over and get dresses so that they'll be lovely, lovely, lovely on their prom night. And I know some of you are wondering and saying, what do you mean prom? The schools have been out. Well, thankfully, these children are going to get a chance to attend their proms and celebrate graduation. And we're so pleased with that. So she was able to, as I say, bless more than 100 young ladies at the annual Belle of the Ball prom dress giveaway held at Baptiste. No, my apologies. At her annual Belle of the Ball prom dress giveaway that was hosted at the Third New Hope Baptist Church on Plymouth here in Detroit. And it was a great celebration. We thank all of those people who volunteered. We can't do much of this without volunteers, and we had a great group of volunteers who helped out. We really, really appreciate that. Now, you know, my subject that I've been talking about for the last 2 years is census. We're going to talk about the census today, as we usually do. And you know, the census has been completed, and the early numbers are in. We don't have specifics yet in terms of where the growth or non-growth took place in all the states, but we do know what the numbers are. And unfortunately, Michigan did not rank high enough to keep our districts. So we're going to lose a congressional seat. Unfortunately, we are going to lose a congressional seat. We just don't know where yet. And I'll talk probably next week about how that seat or those seats are proportioned and who the group is who will be determining the number of seats that will be in the Detroit area specifically, but where those district lines will be drawn. Just some information for you. Even though Michigan did not lose population, thank goodness. We lost population in the 2010 census. But even though we didn't lose population, we gained 193 seats. We were not able to keep the number of representatives we had. Just real sorry about that. Just really unfortunate that we were not able to do that. And I'm going to go off for 1 second. I'll be right back because I need to send some information to someone that I did not send. Terrible me, but I thought I sent that to her. So one of our guests is trying to get in, so I'll be right back.
WVTC Radio Detroit.
Aaron.
He is more than anything, no matter what the problem is. I know who can solve them. He is more than anything. Again. Have you ever thought about what's going on in life? Have you ever thought about turning wrongs to rights? So dark, where is the light? It's so hard to keep the fight. Step out on faith, he'll lead the way, but you gotta trust and obey. Say, no matter what the problem is, I know who can solve them. He is. Oh, promise. He is more than anything, no matter what the problem is. I know who can solve them. He is more than anything.
Let's go. Hey.
To that person laying with that disease, he's a healer. Standing alone with no one to call on, he can be that friend, he can do that. Down to your last dime, watch him step in on time, he can do that. He's bigger than what you're going through, so stand still and he'll bring you through. Oh, no matter what the problem is, I know who can solve them. He is. Hold to his promise. He is more than anything, no matter what.
Miss Bell, you need to unmute.
All right, I'm back. I was talking about census. And as I talked about before, we did not lose population, thank goodness. At least in the state did not lose population. We gained 193,691 people. However, that was not enough to prevent us from losing a congressional seat. And you will be interested to know the states that gained the greatest percentage of population: Utah, North Dakota, of course, Texas, Florida, and Idaho. Now, some of those states didn't have to gain a whole lot to have a huge percentage of increase. For instance, in Utah, they gained an 18.4% increase, but they didn't have a whole lot of people to begin with. Some of these states don't have as many people as Detroit has or as Wayne County has. However, because of their small numbers to start with, they had a greater percentage of increase in the number of people for the census. So more to come on that, but just to keep you aware of what's going on with the census and what we are going to be dealing with over the next several months as we face reapportionment, so that we know who's going to lose congressional seats in their area and who's going to gain seats in their area. But just for information, the South and the West gained the greatest number of people. The West grew by 6.6 million people. The South had the greatest growth. They grew by 11.7 million people. Now, the greatest part of that was in Texas. Texas had a huge number of people. They gained 3,999,000 people. Florida gained 2,736,000 people. And clearly, a lot of that has to do with climate. People are trying to get away from the cold weather. And so a lot of them are moving south. And as the population ages, more people want to get away from the cold weather and more people are moving south and west. So that is the reason a lot of that's taking place. So that's the information on the census. Congratulations on the bell of the ball. And thank you to Sheriff Washington for last week. But now let's get to our special guest, Sharon McWhorter.
Hi.
Hi, Sharon. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you. Now, Sharon and I serve in a group called WIN, Women's Informal Network. And we've been in that group probably almost since its inception. But I met Sharon initially back in the Obama campaign in 2008. because she owned the building. She owned what was a school building, and she volunteered that building for the Obama campaign, but it was just getting started. So Sharon, talk about Sharon as a woman. Where you come from, what you did, and talk about that building. I love that building.
Okay, actually, I got started in real estate when I bought my first HUD house. And the reason I bought a HUD house was because I had heard somewhere on television that people pay 3 or 4 times what the house costs if they use a regular mortgage. And when I learned that there were HUD houses available for less than that, I was determined that I was not going to pay 3 times what a house value was.
Yes, excellent reason.
So that
Very
was my first foray. And I also am an inventor. I invented a cup holder for bikes, and
Oh,
so I was with the Michigan Minority Development Council under Sheila Stargill, and at that time I was trying to promote my cup holder because it could fit on riding lawnmowers and bicycles and wheelchairs and things of that sort. Given that, John Deere came to a meeting with the Minority Business Council, and they said, "Look, we want to invest. We want to partner with minority businesses, but we come to your business and we see what you have." And because I was working out of my basement in my home, I said, "Oh my God, I need to get a building." So that can't happen with that. I'm like, I can't. They can't come to my basement. And we were packing all of our holder cups in the basement. So I went out looking for an office building, and some well-to-do friends of mine who owned building in what was called the Cass Corridor shared with me and they spoke to me like I had money. I really didn't at the time. I had a job.
But you obviously made it look like you had something.
I guess. So they said, "Look, there's a school building over there on Myrtle. Why don't you go by that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And so it was being auctioned along with 7 other buildings by the Detroit Board of Education, and nobody bidded on that building. I didn't even get to see it. I sent my sister and 2 friends to look at it. They made an appointment to see it, and they said, "Well, it looks great." And the minimum bid was $22,000. And I scraped up and called a friend because I didn't have 22 cents and asked them could they loan me, I think I asked them, could they loan me $4,000 so I could put my bid in. And I called one guy who liked me. And I asked him, and he says, "What do you need the money for? I don't even loan my mother that much money." And I'm like, "Okay, well, click, you're off the list." And I called a friend who, we were just friends, and I said, "Can you loan me some money?" And he said, "I can write you a check."
And you said, "Really?"
And I said, "Thank you." I said, "I'll be over to get it." And when we put the bid in, I went down there at I think the bid closed at 4 o'clock, and I was there at 3:30 and I bid it $4,000 over what the asking price was. And then I realized nobody was there bidding on that property because she asked me, she says, "You sure this property is on the list?" I said, "Well, yeah." And I gave her my bid, and we won.
Oh, wow.
And when we won, the board contacted me. And they said, "You won the bid." I guess he heard the hesitancy in my voice. He said, "Do you need 30 days?" He just said, "Do you need 30 days?" I said, "Yeah, I sure do." So, it was, I got a mortgage on my HUD house that I bought, and came up with the money along with help from my mother. And the rest is history. I bought that building, and then 30 plus years later, I sold that one, and we in between there, we bought the Commodore Apartments in the corridor, in another building in the what we call Midtown today. And then I bought a Detroit pump plant. So I bought that after we sold that building, so that I'm thinking of doing some other things with that, and a commercial property in Highland Park and some houses,
Wow.
but I got rid of those.
Okay.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh, good story. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Sharon Madison, are you there? I don't hear her. Hopefully she was able to get in. Well, she'll come on in a minute. Until then, we're gonna continue to talk because I love you. Oh, there she
Oh,
is.
yes.
Hey Sharon, how are
Hi,
you?
I'm good.
Welcome.
I'm actually, I was trying to get in on my computer, but I can't get it on my computer. So this is my phone.
Oh, you never know it. Great. Oh, great, great. Thank you so much for joining us. Sharon just finished telling me about the saga she went through when she bought her first building. It's quite an interesting story. And so I'm going to ask you the same thing. What made you get into real estate and how did you get started?
Well, as you know, my original business is architecture, engineering, program
Hmm.
management. So, my one day, I guess maybe it's been now, gosh, uh, too long to count, but
A lot of years. I do know that, but it's a lot of years because I go back to when your father
well,
owned the.
that's what I was going to say. That
Yeah.
my father told me one day, Sharon, we need to buy a building. Go find one, right? So okay, so I always did what my dad said, and I looked at several buildings. A couple of them on East Jefferson, one that was closer to the riverfront, and then this building on Washington Boulevard. And so, I lived here in Detroit, and so when my dad came to town, we took a tour, and he said, "Yeah, okay, this is the one on Washington Boulevard." So I started with, at the time it was owned by Mr. Schumacher. It was a furniture store, Gardner Schumacher, and then Mr. Schumacher was about to sell the business. I guess it was before then. It was the Robinson Furniture Store.
Hmm.
And so I talked, so I used to go talk to Mr. Schumacher. This has been my experience with a lot of people. You just go and talk to them and find out where they are. And, he was he was thinking about retiring. And so after a couple of years, he decided to sell the building. Now, this was in the 1980s, and it was very difficult to get loans to purchase commercial property. It was difficult to get loans for businesses, for that matter, in Detroit. And so I was able, so then I started talking to the city of Detroit, and I went to the Downtown Development Authority, and I talked to them about it. I talked to Emmett Mo, who was the head of uh, economic development for the city at the time, and so I was able to get a loan from the Downtown Development Authority, and that's how the purchased that building, and then shortly thereafter, I'm talking to Emmett, and Emmett said, "Well, Sharon, that parking lot is next to your building. The city owns that." I was like, "Okay." So, so I went back to the city and said, "I'd like to buy the parking lot," and at the time, I wasn't thinking about real estate. I'm focused on the other
Hmm.
businesses. But we put our offices there. We started to do uh, some college because it had been vacant for maybe about a year or so when we purchased it. And then my father died shortly thereafter.
Hmm.
I don't, uh, and so my offices are there. We've got a couple other businesses that are in the building, and we really struggled for a very long time because I really had to scrap that. It was like all out of my cash flow. So I'm taking money from one business to support
Yeah.
and to do renovation. And it was very, it was years before I was actually able to get a real loan to actually, for years, just out of my own cash flow. But that's how I purchased that property. And then, eventually started, migrating more toward real estate development. And so that's really what I'm doing now.
Oh, that's great. And just the story behind Sharon. Sharon's parents were in Cleveland. I knew her mother before I knew Sharon. Sharon's mother was on the school board in Cleveland, and I was on the school board in Detroit. And she and her mother and I became great friends at the school board conferences. And little did I know that I would later meet her daughter, who became a great advocate for Detroit and the school system. Her father, she established scholarship funds over at Mumford High School. Talk about that, Sharon.
Yeah, well, I'm okay now. I'm on my phone, so I'm trying to make sure that I don't lose. I'll be
Okay.
because my battery's about to go. I'm sitting here on my computer. Can you let me in on in the computer in the Zoom room? It says they're waiting for the host to start the meeting. I've got to, okay. I will tell you the story, but I'm gonna start walking. I hate to do this, but I didn't think I
Okay.
was gonna be on my phone, and it is going to die.
Oh, now this battery. And you can't get in on your computer.
Right. I mean, it says that I'm waiting for the host to let me in. That's what it says. But anyway, we'll improvise here, which is
Okay.
what we do, right?
Okay.
So, the thing about my mother is very interesting. As you know, Edna, my mother is iconic in the world of politics,
Yes.
and so she's jump started a lot of careers. One is Suzanne Shank, who is known throughout the country, but my mother gave her first. My mother was president of the school board in Cleveland, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It gave her first senior management job there, which really boosted her career.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know Suzanne Shank, tell them what Suzanne Shank is and who she is, Sharon.
Well, my suggestion is people Google her, but she is considered to be a billion-dollar woman, and on Wall
Yes.
Street, she has
Yes,
the
she is.
largest, public finance company in the country, and has basically done billions of dollars worth of work in the financial services area. So,
And she lives right here in the metropolitan Detroit area. Got her
and she
start
does.
right here, everybody. And
Right.
she's a wonderful young lady.
Yes. So we've got some fantastic women here in the city of Detroit that have done
Yes.
amazing things, but some of us come from Cleveland.
Yes. And we accept you because we make you honorary Detroiters because you've done such wonderful things here.
Yeah, well, most people don't know that I'm not from Detroit.
I
But,
know. And
um,
the other part is a lot of people don't know that there's a black woman who owns a building on Washington Boulevard in Detroit.
right. So
That in itself is special.
yeah, well, just really the first woman that I'm aware of to own property in downtown Detroit.
Mhm.
And Pat Cole.
Is there another one?
Well,
Other than
Pat
you
Cole,
and Pat was the first one. You and
Cole,
Pat Cole.
yeah, Pat Cole purchased the building a few years after I did, and
Uh-huh.
she's still very active.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, that and because I was in the waiting room, I didn't hear all of Sharon's presentation. How you doing, Sharon?
Excellent. How are you?
Yeah, it's a great name, Sharon. But anyway,
I agree.
yeah. But I think that one of the things that I've learned through the years is that some things you plan, and some things you happen to plan. And so this was one of those. The latter was the case for me. I wasn't really, and I mean, I was, as you know, I mean, I had a pretty serious architecture and engineering
Yeah.
business, and then program and construction management.
And let me throw something else in. If you know the Detroit People Mover, Sharon's company is the one who designed and built the Detroit People Mover. So,
Well, we didn't
design.
it.
Design. You didn't know it.
No,
Design. I'm sorry.
we
That
didn't
gives me
design
too
it. We
much.
were the program managers.
Program managers for it.
Yeah, and that was my first actually really big job
Mhm.
working here in the city of Detroit. But the but we've done a lot of really important and significant projects. So I wasn't really thinking about real estate, but as it was forced upon me when I realized that, okay, you know what? for years, I said I was bootstrapping it. I was financing everything myself. Any improvements were coming out of my own cash flow, out of, my other businesses or my personal dollars. And then I tried to work with Washington Boulevard and establish the Washington Boulevard Association, because I said, okay, well, don't do anything in isolation, engage others. But it's, people may forget, but for a very long time, downtown Detroit was a dead zone. And there really wasn't a lot of activity that was occurring down there. And so, I guess there was a point that if I could have sold the building, I would have, but nobody was buying. So I had to decide, okay, and this has kind of been a hallmark of my life. I said, okay, you read a crossword, you're either going to have to make it work yourself, because nobody's going to work it for you. So that's when I started engaging other property owners. And then all of a sudden people start saying, gosh, you got to, people used to say to me, well, you should sell that building. That's crazy. The building, nobody wanted to buy anything in downtown Detroit. And then it turned, and then people says, you are a genius. You have that building. So, I just tell people there's a very fine line between being crazy and being a genius. And it really is just time. So, but, I feel that we're in a, as I've gotten older and had a better understanding of how the universe works and how these things work, is that, you're put in, when opportunity knocks, sometimes you don't always recognize it as such. But if you work the problem, and problems occur either for something as growth or something that you have to learn, but it's never in some sort of random type of scenario. It may seem to be that way, but it's not. So whenever I've been confronted with a problem, you just work the problem and you try to look at all the angles, and then it wasn't, it was a while for me, maybe slow learner, but I realized that when you looked at the Fortune 500 for years, I mean, now it's dominated by tech, but there's still a very important and large sector that's real estate, and real estate is the only finite thing that we have in this country.
Absolutely.
So it's very important.
As they say, God is not making any more land.
That's right.
So if you own some land.
And so,
Absolutely.
wherever it can, and so whether or not, you think you can't do it, I think that you can. My experience has been that you can always make something work. You can always make it profitable in terms of what the tail end of what I heard Sharon's remarks, or, well, she bought a property, and then she sold it and bought another property, and then she sold that and bought another property, and and that's really how you create and build wealth.
Yeah. And Sharon McWhorter, what are some of the challenges you face?
Well, initially, I would say not, as we acquired the property, we did that with our own funds. But then when you wanted to do major repairs and stuff, lenders aren't always out there to help you out. So that was something. I know that I did get a little bit of, actually, when we looked to get the Commodore building in Midtown, I was able to get financing. And I think that was also because I was in the right place at the right time. It didn't hurt that I was connected to, or was the chair of the Detroit Empowerment Zone at that time. And so I think that enhanced my my application, and knowing other folks on the board, so it went well, that aspect. But people thought I was crazy as I don't know what. I tried to get help immediately from family and friends. I'd rather have immediate family invest with me as opposed to strangers. And it wasn't like they didn't have the money, but you can't spend other people's money. But it becomes, as Sharon was saying, people always seem to want to think you're crazy when you do something that they won't do. And for me to invest in the Cass Corridor, which is now Midtown, and property values that I still own property in Midtown have gone through the roof. Now I'm not so crazy. But 30 years ago, I was crazy as hell. Oops. So, yeah, challenges of your family thinking you crazy, lenders not wanting to lend you money. Um, and you're not going to get any money for acquisition, so you have to create your own, just to keep on buying and investing in your own properties. And then insurers not wanting to insure your property because you're in the corridor or because you're on this side of town. And how do you protect your property when you're renovating it? So those are just obstacles that came in.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Go
but
ahead.
yeah, I think that is all true. And but but having said that, there's always a way, because you found a way. I found
Mm-hmm.
a way. And I mean, the folks who are lending in Detroit, I mean, it still is not easy
Well, it is
Mm-hmm.
easy
to
for
get.
Black women or
Right.
Black people, period, to get loans in
That's
Detroit
right.
or anywhere else, but particularly in Detroit, even though we hear about these people, oh, property in Detroit is going great, people want to buy, people want, not completely true.
Right. But the whole thing is, and this is something that uh that I just think that you have to understand your area and what you're dealing with. So so I mean, I brought a property in New York City kind of the same way, on a in Harlem, in the early um in the late 90s. And I was spending time in New York, and I looked at New York, and I always have a pretty good thing about what was going on. As a matter of fact, I was looking at New York because of Detroit. They were doing, Wall Street, the area around Wall Street was really looking like downtown Detroit. They didn't know what to do. People were moving out of town, and they were converting to a lot of them to residential around the World Trade Center. So I spent time looking at that, looking at, how to bring that back here. And I found a property on 124th Street in Harlem. Okay, so I was able, I'm always, like as Sharon says, some you got to use what you got. So, I looked at, I had equity in one property, and so I purchased this property in Harlem. And this was before Harlem, had its renaissance. And I started looking around. There was property next to my property, and I'm trying to find out who owns that property, because I knew it was something, right? But I was forced by my bank in Detroit to sell my property in New York. So I did, and I hadn't done anything with that property, but I made like a 50% profit in doing nothing in over a year. But I bring up this story because, maybe about a year after I sold my property, I found that the W Hotel bought the property next to mine, and
Oh,
and actually that area looks totally different now. And so, to Sharon's point, it's really important to kind of look around with intelligence, though, not to buy just anywhere, but say, okay, Cass Corridor, for instance, you got Wayne State University, you've got the medical center, you've got all these institutions. It's not going to be like this forever. Or for that matter, I mean, it's crazy to think that nobody was thinking about downtown Detroit except for me first, and then Dan Gilbert. But but
good company.
yeah, but I'm just saying that, here we are, we are on an international border, a
Mhm.
major U.S. city. 60 years ago, the wealthiest city in the country. So it's not going to stay that way forever. And when folks decide to move, the powers to be, they move quickly. So my property value escalated, and Sharon's as well, not necessarily because of anything that we did, because we were doing the same things we had been doing. But in real estate, they just decide, oh, okay, this is valuable. I mean, that's why you can look at a house in Sherwood Forest, and you can look at a house that looks similar in Birmingham, and the one in Birmingham is quote unquote valued 10 times more. But though that where we are is a major city, where it's location. There are certain corridors that eventually it's going to pop. The challenge in Detroit for a lot of areas is that it's so geographically large.
Yes.
And so having the kind of concentration of population, but that's what's happened in downtown. That's what's happened in Midtown. It's going to eventually happen going east. The riverfront is starting to look like that, and in other areas of the city. But wherever you are, real estate is real estate. So and the important thing is to look for where there's value.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
you have to see it first, because if you wait, I mean, I know a lot of people say, oh, can you figure out, do you know any property? It's too late now. Shoot, I wish I had done that. Well, you could have.
Mhm.
And part of it is Sharon was talking about friends and family, but we have to learn how to pool our resources.
Exactly.
One of us can't do it by ourselves. Individually, you put 5 to 10 people together, and you can pull together what's necessary to get it done.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we need to begin to do more often, is pull those resources together from wherever they are and make it happen. Because there's a lot that can happen. And I talked about the census a little bit earlier. And as I talk about the census, even though the numbers in Michigan went up, they didn't go up enough for us to not lose a seat. And what will be interesting is to see how the numbers went in Wayne County and Detroit, to see if those numbers went up. And once we begin to see where they went up, and those numbers won't be out probably until mid-year summer, so that we know specifically what areas increased. I think that will be a key for us to look where we might want to begin to put together some folks to invest in things. Because we gained, I think, 93,000 people, 193,000 people. But it wasn't enough for us not to lose, because Texas and Florida and some of the other places gained so many people. But I think it will behoove us to look at where the gains are and to begin to planning now what we're going to do as it relates to property and people. But the other piece of it, I tell people, I don't do politics on the show, but I do strategic planning. Strategic planning says that if we're going to be able to do some things in this city and the area, we need to begin to plan who's going to be the leadership in the area. And we need to be involved in that process. And so my thought is that we need a woman to be in leadership in this area. And so we need to start planning that now for the next 4 years, who that person is going to be. And that has nothing to do with politics. That just has to do with leadership and survival for us. And so that's what I'm looking to get involved with.
Yeah, well, and then you and I've talked about this before. The census was one of my tenets over the last couple of years, and I was able to observe very clearly, what they were up against. Who in the world thinks? I mean, we know all of the roadblocks that were put up by the Trump administration and Republicans in general to keep people from being counted. And during I mean, that happens normally, and then you add on the pandemic and the fact that I mean, I'm not even sure, and they were supposed to try to extend it, but they wouldn't allow them to extend it.
Yes.
And and then so that goes straight to who's in all these seats are really important. We found out the importance of the courts, not just as it relates to the presidency and other elected officials, but it's important that who's in these court seats, because now we're dealing with court fights. And I had the census as a tenet in 2020 and the census as a tenant in 2000. And I recall that, you know, there was an undercount. At that time, Detroit still had 1 million people. And a lot of Detroit's financing was tied to having 1 million people or over 1 million
Exactly.
people. And Coleman Young, as mayor, said, we got 1 million people. And he protested and then found those folks so that we could continue. Now, by the time it got to next census, there were different people in place, and they didn't really, you know, seem to feel that that was something they should fight for. But I think that in any political situation, that 10-year election is so important. Now, you know, you're not talking politics, but I am.
That's
Because
okay.
I feel
Thank
like,
you very much.
yeah, that, you know, and, you know, I was very concerned about 2020, just with the observation of the census, because, and, you know, and really it's the 2010 election where we really lost, because there
Yes,
was not
that's
enough
exactly what happened. We lost
attention paid by the Democratic Party to what was going on.
54,000 people in 2010.
That's right. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that was the big loss.
yeah, no, I know you.
But more to come on that.
I'm sorry. No, so I have to correct myself too. I said the 2020 was a Coleman year. It was the 20. It was the 1990.
90. That's
where
when he made it the million.
That's right.
Yes.
It was 1990. But you know, we've been struggling ever since.
Exactly.
So yeah, you know, we need women. You know, with the talent that we have in Detroit, why we don't have more women, why we don't have Black folks in until the lieutenant governor was elected. You know, we didn't have any statewide Black
Exactly.
folks. And so, you know, so we need to pay attention to all levels of government. That's what the last election told us. And we also need to prepare. So, you know, we not only need to prepare for now, but, you know, we're going to have to, you know, this onslaught that's been going on for the last 10 years is a battle, and, you know, and everybody needs to participate because it affects us on all levels.
Absolutely.
It certainly does. Yes.
Absolutely. Particularly, and last things we talked about, the census, they have what they call essential services. Women make up the majority of every one of those essential services. And in every case, they get paid less than the men in those same professions.
Well, you know, we can't get Equal Rights Amendment passed.
Really, there's something wrong with that.
But we can't get Equal Rights
We're not essential and we're still getting paid less than men. We need
doing the same work.
We've got some work to do. We definitely got some work to do.
Yeah, well, I think really, you know, it's time for, you know, there was some activism last year, which we haven't seen in a while. And, you know, we saw it here, but we saw it mainly in places like Georgia, Oakland, California, New York City, etc. Detroit used to lead in that. We need everybody to start where they are and really understand what's really going on here. Because, you know, I mean, the three of us are engaged in politics. We always have been. You know, we understand what's going on. And I don't think it was until last year when people saw, you know, how COVID hit certain communities more than others, when folks finally start paying attention to what was going on with police departments around the country. Although, you know, I think it's worth noting that Detroit may have problems with the police department, but it doesn't have those kind of problems.
Not as serious. No.
And
Right.
And that's because we have a representative police department.
And the other that and because we have a police chief who grew up here, who graduated from Cass Tech, that everybody knows and is always out there. But because of Coleman Young, we have a police department that looks more like the city.
That's true.
And that makes a huge difference. Ladies, thank you so much for coming on. We didn't get enough time to talk about everything, so you're going to have to come back because there's lots more we need to talk about. So get ready.
All right.
I look forward to coming back. I hope I can get on my computer next time. So
Yes, yes.
I feel like
But yeah, we've got some plans to make and some things to talk about. And I'll be talking more about the census and getting in more detail because there's a lot of information in this information, the census data that they sent out. I'm going to be sharing more and more with people.
Well, can I just say one more thing? I mean,
Absolutely.
When this census data finally comes out, you know, and if it comes out the way that I think it is, we need to be protesting because I know there are people that weren't counted in the census. And, and the census workers could not, during COVID, where they can't go knock on doors.
That's exactly.
And so the whole thing is kind of a sham. And I think we should recognize it as such. And this is where we need to be pressuring our elected officials. It's not just in self-interest of whether or not somebody's going to lose their congressional seat, but there are real dollars that are associated with the census, or the outcome of the census, and also really even esteem in terms of what comes back to us in terms of real services.
Absolutely.
So to the extent, this is the first level of activism, and as we go forward, because it does affect everything.
Absolutely. Sharon McWhorter, final comments?
I just, on the census, I just want to say that with the apartment building I own, I made sure the census data collector came in and knocked on every door in my apartment building.
Great.
Good. And that's
because it's important. It's important.
I
And
have a friend who worked for the census, and she couldn't get into a lot of apartment buildings.
when they, I had already done mine online, but I said, no, you can come in. These units are vacant, but here, knock, help yourself. I said, my tenants need to know. And I said, and I want to assist you. But also, as we always have been doing, it's always, even if we can't get to as many people as we can, but always get to at least one. Reach one, teach one, constantly, and pass it on, pass it forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me on WVTC Radio Detroit. And to our owner is a Black woman, Sandy Rose, owns the station. I always have to give her props because
All right.
the owner of the station, and we're going to be doing a lot more as the year goes on, which relates to women and women-owned businesses and all the things that impact us, like everything impacts us. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Time. Take care. Have a great evening. Bye.
You too.
Thank you for listening to Community Bell with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner Edna Bell. This broadcast was brought to you by WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, tell a friend to tune in. We'll see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern to the Community Bell Show, right here on WVTC Radio Detroit. You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit, and we're flowing in the Spirit.